It had a wonderful roller coaster, exciting mainly because it always seemed about to come apart. It also had the best fun house anywhere. Playland, of course, was an amusement park. It hasn't existed for 11 years, but those of us who fooled away a lot of days there won't forget it. The controversy over what to do with the land where Playland stood hasn't ended yet, as we found out by paying a visit to Ocean Beach.
For a million years before it was named, Ocean Beach was a deserted stretch of sand along the west end of what would someday be San Francisco. In the 1860s, a few buildings sprang up in this vast open territory. Travelers who braved the dusty roads could stop at the Long Branch Saloon and Restaurant to wet their whistles. By the late 1880s, there were a number of impressive gathering places on the site, including a hotel, a beach pavilion, and meeting halls. It was still a long journey from town, but eventually the automobile came along to shorten the distances. A merry-go-round called a carousel then was among the attractions that would become Playland at the beach. By 1890, those who had 10 cents could ride the chutes. Gentlemen and ladies, properly attired, would ride the little car that dropped thrillingly into a splash of water. By this time, there were more than crowds, there were mobs. Mobs of people, mobs of automobiles. The cars changed their shape over the years, but the crowds kept coming. By the 1940s, Playland at the beach was 3 blocks of rides, games, and honky-tonk attractions where G.I. Joes and sailor boys and their girls could relax on leave. Even into the 50s, Playland was booming. The area was always private property, but very much a public place. Then in the 1960s, the crowds went away. The attractions, some of them already shabby, fell into disrepair. Juveniles looking for mischief began to prowl the Midway. Other cities along the coast have rescued their boardwalk attractions, renovated them, and promoted them as tourist attractions. San Francisco did nothing to rescue Playland at the beach. In 1972, it was closed for good. There were years of arguments over what the city should do about the property, but since the city didn't own it, the arguments were inconclusive. The property changed hands more than once. Where that great amusement park once stood, there are now 4 parcels of land. All 4 parcels owned by a builder-developer called Ocean Beach Associates. And on those first 2 parcels you see behind me, there are these new condominiums, mostly vacant, as new condos everywhere are mostly vacant. And this is parcel 3, so far undeveloped, and so far nothing more or less than a big hole in the ground. And this is parcel 4, a piece of open land that some people would like to see become a public park. In fact, in order to build on those first 3 parcels, the builders had to promise to sell this property to the Golden Gate Recreation Area, in other words, to the federal government. But the federal government isn't buying much land these days. The Reagan administration has cut back on the acquisition of public lands, and if the Golden Gate National Recreation Area does get any funds to buy land, this parcel is not high on the list. Now the developer has announced plans to build more condos on parcel 4 instead of building on parcel 3. That has a lot of people angry. And finally there is this huge parking area between the Fake Rocks and Fulton Street. The developer has nothing to do with this, but there is a plan approved 3 years ago that would take out much of this parking area, replace it with a green strip with trees. That would do away with about 2/3 of those parking places. That has a lot of people mad too. All these San Franciscans live in the area and are marching to protest one plan or the other, or both. They present a unified appearance, but their reasons and philosophies vary.
Every time I come from a trip down south and I look at this beauty here, and I look at this beauty here, I feel that we have nothing to envy to Hawaii or to the Mediterranean or to any of the beautiful sights that we find down south.
What I object to is the obstruction of my view, the loss of open space. And they intend to remove part of the toe of the hill, which will cause a lot of erosion. There's an endangered species up there, the dune tansy, and other creatures. And we just object to the promise being broken.
On January 20th, the San Francisco Planning Commission will meet to decide whether Ocean Beach Associates can go ahead and build on Parcel 4. The protesters want the developer forced to build on Parcel 3 first. Some because their houses look down on the beach and they're afraid that if the builder goes broke or stops work for any reason, they'll be left looking down on a big hole in the ground. Others object to the proposed green space because they say it won't leave enough parking for the San Franciscans who want to visit the beach. David Warren is a former carnival performer who collects Playland memorabilia and operates the last vestige of the park, the giant camera behind the Cliff House.
GGNRA just spent $5 million buying Sutro baths. Right. So you see, that's a very small area too. We're very pleased. I'm not trying to say that we're sad about that. We're glad that we have Sutro baths. It's great to have that. But now that we have that, you see, you can't run around in Sutro baths. It's like a climbing area. You know, you got to climb over the rocks. But over here, it could be open space. Now they're going to take out all this parking down here except for 138 car places. 138 places, 530 of them between here and there.
But whatever happens here, there doesn't seem to be much concrete hope on anyone's part that this land will ever revert to the public. As for Playland at the beach, that's a fading memory that fewer and fewer people remember. At what used to be Playland at the beach, Bob McKenzie for segment 2.
Well, I still miss that place. How about you?
Sure do. That brought us back a lot of memories.
It was fun, huh?